Hello, I'm Anna Richardson, and in this edition of iiaa Live, we'll again be looking at cutting-edge science for preventing, treating and reversing skin ageing. Over the years, we've seen many new molecules come to the fore to treat skin, from vitamins to antioxidants to peptides. But nowadays, we have a new weapon in the anti-aging arsenal: growth factors. These powerful molecules have the ability to achieve amazing transformations in the skin. Discussing this are Dr. Des Fernandez, plastic surgeon and founder of Environ Skincare, and Professor Malcolm Maiden from the University of Florida, expert in the role of vitamin A in development and regeneration. Joining them is Professor Mark Ferguson, Honorary Professor of Life Sciences at the University of Manchester and a world-leading expert on the rejuvenating power of growth factors. Professor Mark Ferguson is not in the studio live, but will be joining us via a previously recorded interview. Professor Ferguson is the recipient of numerous international research awards and was made a CBE in 1999 for his services to science.
Growth factors are molecules that are present that allow the tissues to grow and develop and take form. So they're obviously present at high levels when you're developing as an embryo and a child, and then in the adult they're at maintenance levels, or they're used, for example, during wound healing. So growth factors, as the name suggests, allow tissues to grow, but more importantly they also give shape. They also allow the tissues in the body to form specialist functions. So for example, your pancreas to secrete insulin, or your liver to function. So these are molecules that control growth and size and function. So TGF-beta3 stands for transforming growth factor beta 3, and that's a very bad name for the molecule. It's how it was discovered, which is a long story I don't need to speak about. But actually this is a molecule that is present in the skin, and it's present in other tissues as well, and it's very heavily involved in skin development. It's also involved in the development of other organs and tissues. As the name suggests, TGF-beta3, there's more than one TGF-beta. This happens to be the third one. And there are another two called 1 and 2, very imaginatively. So these molecules do different things. Transforming growth factor beta 3, TGF-beta3, as I said before, is something involved in development, particularly in skin development, particularly when you're an embryo and a child. Well, TGF-beta3 is different from TGF-beta 1 and 2, and in many families of growth factors, what you will find are there are some molecules that do a particular function, and then another molecule that does completely the opposite function. And that's true in the TGF-beta family. TGF-beta 1 and 2 are pro-inflammatory. They stimulate inflammation. TGF-beta 3 tends to be anti-inflammatory. It tends to counteract those effects. It also tends to shut down the production of TGF-beta 1. So although these are all family members, it's kind of like there's a family member that's different from the others and it does the opposite function, and TGF-beta 3 is different from the other two members. Interestingly, they also have common functions, so all of them, for example, will have the same effect on cell proliferation. They all decrease cell proliferation. So there are some common features of the family members, and then there are some very different and specialized features. So transforming growth factor beta 3 is present at very high levels in developing tissues. So it's present in developing embryos and in developing embryonic skin at very high levels. And you can imagine, you know, if you're a growing embryo, that your skin volume may be increasing very significantly over a short period of time. And then during childhood and into adulthood, the levels tend to drop off, they tend to fall. So this is a molecule involved in development, comes back up again, for example, in wound healing situations or in regeneration situations, but principally it's a molecule for development and growth. Well, where most of the experiments have been done with transforming growth factor beta 3 has been in wound healing, and there it's been shown that it can cause the wound to heal with a more normal structure of the skin. And that's been done in animal experiments and in early clinical trials. The later clinical trials for that didn't work, but that was nothing to do with the molecule, it was to do with trial design. So the implication would be, and this is an implication, that if you could raise slightly the levels, you may get more turnover in the skin, you may get more youthful skin, you may get more regeneration within the skin, faster healing, better healing, higher quality of healing. But that would be the implication from the data. Very good. So there are very interesting answers to that. Obviously, TGF-beta 3 is present at very high levels in developing skin. So one might think that if you could raise the levels in normal skin, that you may make it more like early skin, more like a child's skin or embryonic skin. And that's certainly true in wound healing. It's certainly true that you can get wounds to heal. Interestingly, when you get really old, the levels of TGF-beta 3 go back up again. And if you wound an old person, they heal with a much improved scar. And part of the reason for that is the elevated level of TGF-beta 3. Part of the reason is also they have less inflammation. They have lower levels of TGF-beta 1 and TGF-beta 2. So clearly changing the levels or the ratios of these, elevating TGF-beta 3 by comparison with beta 1 or beta 2, tends to give you a more regenerative phenomenon within the skin, particularly in the case of damage like wound healing or micro wound healing, and you get a repair with much better quality, much less scarring.
I'm delighted to introduce Tracy Tamaris, Director of Education at the iiaa.
Growth factors are part of the natural wound healing process, and they promote skin tissue repair and regeneration. And activating the natural growth factors in our skin induces collagen and elastin production and results in a younger, thicker, tighter, smoother, and healthier skin. All our cells actually have the ability to produce growth factors. They just need the right stimuli. Dr. Fernandez is a world leader in developing products and treatments designed to stimulate the release of these natural growth factors in our skin. And during this module, I'm going to discuss with you what these are and how they work. The concept of needling was pioneered by Dr. Fernandez and has now become an accepted way to rejuvenate skin and improve scarring. It involves rolling over the skin with 1 to 3 millimeter needles in order to make thousands of fine pricks close to each other and create bleeding. And this simple injury induction sets up a very complex healing cascade which initiates the release of platelets, which then release various growth factors to stimulate collagen and elastin. And these photographs clearly demonstrate the lifting effect one gets from needling due to the stimulation. This is after a course of 6 1-millimeter treatments, and the natural eye elevation that you see will have a rejuvenating effect for the client. And have a look at her crow's feet, which are noticeably shallower. The Allergan #ThisIsMe campaign found that 41% of women say they want to look fresher and more radiant, and skin needling is a perfect treatment to achieve this. So, as you heard now from Professor Ferguson, he explained that if we raise TGF-beta 3, then we may well get more regeneration in skin and make it look like younger skin. He has shown that TGF-beta 3 is the agent responsible for scarless healing. And this is TGF-beta 3 is something we generally only see in regenerating fetal tissue. However, Matthias Aust has shown in research done at Hanover University that needling actually upregulates TGF-beta 3, and after needling treatments, your TGF-beta 3 is released in preference to 1 and 2, and these are the ones that actually promote scar tissue. And Professor Aust has also shown that when the skin is adequately prepared with vitamin A before and after needling treatments, there is a 40% greater thickening of the epidermis compared to needling alone. And this shows how vitamin A assists in the release of these growth factors and should always be used in conjunction with needling. So needling can also be done in the body and is excellent for stretch marks. So the increased collagen and elastin production tighten the skin and result in much firmer, smoother skin. And the results in this case have been maintained with the use of vitamin A, C, and a neutralized lactic acid. And needling can also be done successfully on scarring, and Dr. Fernandes and Professor Oust have done fantastic work on burn scars. Here you see an example of treating acne scarring, and unlike laser treatments, the skin remains strong and healthy. So, nicknamed Facelift in a Bottle, the Revival Mask was launched in the UK in November 2014 and was an instant success. It very quickly started to win awards and continues to be a firm favorite of the journalists. So, Revival Mask has a very unique formulation containing 3 different acids. So, lactic acid, which is hydrating and skin lightening, mandelic acid, which is from bitter almonds. It's also skin lightening, and there's good research for its anti-aging properties. And asiatic acid, which is from a common South American weed and has been used for centuries in ancient traditional healing. And research has shown that it stimulates growth factors, particularly TGF-beta3. And Revival Mask works by lowering the pH of the skin, which in turn stimulates keratinocyte stem cells to release growth factors, which then make the skin thicker and promotes collagen and elastin production. So these photographs clearly demonstrate the effects of growth factor stimulation. So this is a lady in her 70s and has been using vitamin A on her skin for about 20 years. And she introduced Revival Mask, and 5 months later, it's clear to see the tightening effects she experienced. And look at the shortening of the lines around her eyes and the contouring of her jawline. So it actually looks like she's had a facelift. And here's another nice example of acne scarring. So the growth factors stimulate the production of normal lattice-type collagen 1, which we normally found in young skins. And the skin surface also becomes much smoother, making the scarring less noticeable. And in this slide, have a look at the reduction of the fine lines around the eyes. They have all but disappeared. His skin is radiant and smooth. And Revival Mask will also reduce redness and lighten pigmentation. And this is something that I've actually noticed on myself from using the product. So EnvironCool peels work in a similar way. These are salon treatments, and they're offered generally in a course of 6. And they contain lactic acid and a cream base, which is painted onto the skin and left for up to 20 minutes. And because everyone is unique and responds differently to acids, there are ways of enhancing the effects or of reducing them. So they work on the principle that if the keratinocytes are sufficiently stressed, they will release growth factors, and particularly TGF-beta3, which will rejuvenate the skin, promote new collagen and elastin, and stimulate the production of hydrating factors. And this method is regenerative as opposed to traditional peels, which are destructive. So here you can see fantastic results after a course of cool peels. The skin is more radiant, smooth, and hydrated, and there is a noticeable softening of lines and a reduction of redness. So repetitive light peels are also an excellent way to treat acne and rosacea, but that is a topic for another day. So as we have discussed previously on iiaa Live, vitamin A controls the way our cells differentiate, grow, and mature. In playing this unique role, vitamin A will also stimulate growth factors and signaling molecules. And while vitamin A remains the most important molecule for skin health, there are other extremely exciting molecules and treatments that can be added to enhance results. So in this module, we have discussed how to stimulate the release of natural growth factors in the skin, and adding to the existing vitamin therapies will provide skin specialists with the tools to achieve even more dramatic changes for their clients' skins, changes that previously they would not have dreamt possible. Thank you very much.
Des, Malcolm, let's just have a conversation about needling. Malcolm, you said to me just 5 minutes ago, "Do you know, I've never heard of it."
No, I've never heard of it. I was always into chemical treatments and various things like that. But no, I haven't. But Mark Ferguson described its mechanism of action, and that's what I'm always interested.
Well, let's talk more about it, Des. Fill us in. Just why is needling so important?
I think needling's important because it's the first time in medical history that we're able to regenerate tissue. It's never been done before. No other treatment available today causes regeneration of tissue. And when we say tissue, we're speaking specifically about the skin, about collagen, and about elastin. No treatments before could regenerate normal lattice work type of collagen and elastin.
And earlier on, when we were chatting backstage, you said that actually you have needling treatments yourself, don't you?
Yes.
Regularly?
As often as I can fit them in. I'm a month away today, I think, from my last session where I did 6 needlings in 19 days.
Gosh.
And
would you recommend that to...
yes, I do, and I recommend... that's my 3rd session done that way, or 3rd or 4th, and I think with each time my skin is tighter, and I just recommend it on as many patients as will do it, twice a week if possible.
Twice a week. And how long should the needles be?
With this, generally 1 millimeter is what is suitable.
And you have to cause that injury, don't you? You need to see the beading, is that right?
That's right.
Okay, on that subject, actually, I do have a question from the audience. This is from Teresa Kingman. My clients have all read about the effects of cosmetic stimulation therapy, but I find it hard to actually get them to receive the treatment with confidence. They see images of skin bleeding and then they're put off. How can I succeed in giving them confidence in the treatment procedure? What would you say?
Don't show them the pictures of the bleeding.
Fair enough. There you go, Teresa.
That's a transient phase. Show them the results of what they will look like 5 minutes after you've washed them off.
So don't show them
They
the
don't
blood,
need to
just
see
look at
the
the
bleeding
results.
there. They've got their eyes closed. They don't know about it.
That's what you say to everybody, Des. So, Malcolm, interested in a little bit of needling now after this, do you think? Because you've got a room
yeah,
full of women who
yeah.
are going to do it for you.
No, I've seen the picture now, so
Yes, put you off.
too late.
At least I don't have to persuade you to use vitamin A
No,
to
That's
promote
true.
the results.
That's true.
Well, again, we know about the power of vitamin A. It's an extraordinary nutrient. But now we're talking about growth factors. Are they possibly more important, Malcolm?
Well, no, I think they're linked. That's what's really interesting, because you can show by molecular studies of the mechanism of vitamin A action that sometimes they induce growth factors and then work on their downstream targets. So when I talked about vitamin A going into the nucleus, switching on genes, one of those genes may be a growth factor, maybe TGF-beta, maybe NGF, or any other growth factor. So they're involved in the mechanisms of action. Sometimes it's been found that growth factors themselves act by switching on the molecule that synthesized, the enzyme that synthesized retinoic acid. So they're absolutely intricately linked. We've certainly seen that in several studies that we did.
And Des, would you concur with that? I mean, if you had to choose between growth factors and vitamin A, are we now about to have a growth factor revolution?
I think growth factors are fantastic, but I'm terribly frightened of them.
How so?
Because growth factors have to be like an orchestra. There must be, the right note must be played at the right time. And if we just simply take growth factors, put them in a cream, put them on the skin, we have no control. And that's why I believe we have to be upstream. And vitamin A is upstream. Needling is upstream. of growth factors. The growth factors are the results of what we do. And we get their benefits because our body decides on the exact proportions of each different growth factor.
Let's just,
the other important thing about that is that growth factors are very expensive to make and have to be very, very carefully controlled about their biological efficacy because they're small proteins. So you can completely overcome that problem by giving vitamin A, which might upregulate that. So you save millions of pounds and be biologically much more safer because you're actually using it in a normal situation.
So again, it all comes back to vitamin A. We start with vitamin A, and again, it is linked to growth factors.
Oh, absolutely, in molecular action, definitely.
Let's talk a little bit, Des, about the Revival mask. And I do use Environ products, and I have been particularly impressed with the mask. Genuinely impressed with it. I think it's a remarkable product. So what is the science behind it?
Well, I realized that asiatic acid, which is something that has fascinated me since 1979, I realized that we were in a situation where we could use good extracts of asiatic acid and that we could try and get the real benefits because it's always been in the sidelines, asiatic acid. And so that's why I decided to do the research work. And I started in 2008.
And have you found that people can tolerate it well?
Asiatic acid, fortunately, is not a strong acid. It's a weak acid.
Yeah.
And it's very well tolerated by the skin.
So if you're starting off using the Revival mask, how long should you be leaving it on your skin for to begin with?
Well, when we did the studies, and certainly on myself, we left it on the skin for about half an hour and then washed it off. We started to notice changes on that. We then extended it for longer, and then we moved on to sleeping overnight with it.
I've only been using it for 10 minutes. So really it should be at least 30 minutes onwards.
While if your skin's comfortable,
then leave it on
for 30 minutes.
Interesting, because I've been a little bit afraid about using acid on the skin since I had a very, very bad reaction last year to a different product. But this seems to be entirely safe and my skin tolerates it really, really well. So have you had any kind of side effects from the Revival mask? Has anybody commented on that?
Some people find that it can be very drying when they're using it every day for a protracted period. Now, what I suggest is that you put on your standard Environ regime at night and cover it with the Revival mask. Now, we know from research work that it doesn't matter, if you're putting two products on the skin, it doesn't matter which one you put on first.
Okay.
They're both going to get into the skin in the same concentrations. The studies compared actually a cream against an ointment. And in the one case, they put the ointment on first and then the cream, and vice versa, and they got the same concentrations in the skin.
So it's irrelevant. The skin is going to absorb what it needs to absorb. We have a room full of experts and therapists. So what should we be telling everybody here today in terms of how they should be advising their clients on growth factors and how to increase them?
Well, I like to say, first of all, maximize the effects that you can achieve with your creams. And the best way to do that is to use the Cosmetic roll kit every day. I even have seen beautiful results from using it twice a day. And then you will get better penetration, better activation of the various systems, and simply better results. And this is a cosmetic needling that I'm talking about, not medical needling, of course.
Cosmetic needling, so we can just use a millimetre needle.
0.1 millimetre.
0.1 millimetre needle, and you can get sufficient benefit from that.
Yes.
Lovely. Okay, Malcolm? I'm game if you are.
Okay, let's do it.
Thank you very much indeed, gentlemen, for that. And this ends yet another fascinating edition of iiaa Live. We look forward to your joining us for the next edition, offering further interesting information for skincare professionals.